Minnesota's absentee voting period began September 18th. That makes it one of the first states to begin early voting.
And here to discuss that is Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon. Secretary Simon, thanks for being with us. And before we get into the voting process, President Trump held a rally there in Minnesota just one day before he announced he tested positive for COVID. So give me a sense of what the level of concern may be in your state over any potential cases that could be linked back to the White House and President Trump.
The concern is high because we know that he officially tested positive on Thursday, but that doesn't mean he didn't actually have it before then. I know there are a number of people who were at a big fundraiser that he had in the Twin Cities area that are quite concerned, and there have been a lot of news reports around here, at least, speculating about who he might have come in contact with. So unless we know more about the timeline from the White House, I think here in Minnesota there will continue to be elevated concern. And
there'll be a lot of quarantining, hopefully, as well. Now, I want to move on to the election because absentee voting is already underway there in your state. Give us a sense, perspective-wise, what this year compares to 4 years ago. How many ballots have you received this time?
It is extraordinary at this point. I think the big story of this election in Minnesota is the sheer volume of people who have elected to vote from home this year. Last presidential election, it was maybe a couple 100,000. This year so far, with a month to go, we're above 1.2 million who have requested to have their ballots sent to them at home. Many for obvious reasons, to minimize personal risk, but there's something else going on here. I think there's a lot of feeling that for every person who votes from home this year, they're making the polling place just a little bit safer for everyone who does choose that in-person option on game day. So it's kind of a win-win, but the numbers are absolutely off the charts.
Well, Secretary Simon, you talk about the numbers being off the charts. So the idea of you all trying to handle that type of influx. Also, you got lawsuits flying around about when ballots can be counted. You have the president who's out there talking about the idea of voter fraud, even though there's no evidence necessarily of widespread fraud. But how do you, besides just telling folks, hey, trust me, we got this, how do you assure a voter there in Minnesota that the mail-in process is a secure one?
Well, in terms of security, we have 3 layers, triple layers of security in Minnesota. And we've been doing this since just after World War I. This is not new or radical or anything that's 2020 specific. We've been doing voting from home since just after World War I. And not only that, but it's time tested in other ways as well. Not just security, but in terms of the mail. You know, people don't just have to mail it back. They can actually hand deliver it as well if they wish, if they're skittish about the U.S. mail. And we have some new rules in place this year that should make it really secure from the standpoint of peace of mind. For example, you can postmark it as late as Election Day this year. That's new, as long as it arrives by 7 days later on November 10th. That gives everyone an automatic 7-day cushion, no matter what, to get that thing from point A to point B. I think that's a good thing.
And there's something else to throw in here that many people's ears might perk up to hear. You can actually change your mind after you vote there in Minnesota. You can cancel your ballot and then vote again. Now, tell me how that's supposed to work.
Well, here's how it works. So we have a head start in Minnesota. All the folks at the counties and cities can start digging into that mountain of mail 14 days before the election. So that's the time when they can start feeding them into machines, which means that up until that point, up to day minus 14, you can change your mind. It's just sitting there in a pile. So anybody in Minnesota who said, oh, wait, I voted for candidate A, what was I thinking? I should have voted for candidate B. They can contact their local election official and say, hey, please fish my ballot out of the pile, either destroy it and give me another one, or let me come in on election day, on game day, and do it again. So that's something we've been doing for years. And that head start, by the way, is a really good thing. Being able to get to that mountain of mail 14 days in advance is huge. Just from an administrative standpoint, it means a lot smoother election day and election week after that.
All right, Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon. You all, like a lot of states, you have your work ahead of you. And like you said, you have so many more absentee ballots to deal with this time around. So thank you so much for your time. So hope we can call on you again down the road.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Secretary.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.